Hello, 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 everyone. This is Renault, and I want to say thank you so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate it. I am. My head is spinning a little bit, but that's okay. That just means I need to finish off this bottle of wine. This is a very strange situation because I've drunken a bottle of wine and had it not affect me at all. And this time, I'm drinking a bottle of wine, and it's hit me pretty hard. I don't know if I'm not processing as well as I used to, or what's going on, but I am having a great time getting toasted. Lightly toasted. And the reason why I'm getting toasted, lightly toasted, is because I'm reading Bleeding Fool's Top 100 Most Powerful People in Comics list, and the writing is really bad, but I was like, wow, this is amazingly bad. I did not expect it to take so long, but that's okay. That just gives me more time to drink this alcohol. Speaking of which, let me just take a shot for good measure right now. Oh, yeah. I'm still working on this bottle of Gerard Bertrand, Côte des Roses. 2018. A very good year. Now, I finished off with number 50, and so let's just jump right into number 49. But before we jump right into number 49, let's hit up some OC Remix, because I was enjoying some music with this. Alright, number 49. Charlie Olson, another new entry with a high ranking and bizarre, weird highlights. Why is the A in Agent highlighted, Rich Johnston? Why is the A in Agent highlighted? Anyway, and by the way, it's not Agent at Inkwell, it's an agent. Let's take a shot. So yeah, basically, whenever I find some silliness in this Rich Johnston article, I take a shot. My bottle of wine is almost done and gone. But that's okay. I actually have 3 bottles. I was really prepared to get drunk off my ass. And I think I'm getting drunk off my ass right now. Anyway, it's not Agent at Inkwell Management. It's an agent at Inkwell Management Literary Agency. An early adopter in the New York lit agent scene for comic book and graphic novel talent. He's amassed an impressive client list: Jeff Lemire, Noel Stevenson, Matt Kent, and Cullen Bunn, among others. He's tough and aggressive in fighting for his clients, but fair. Charlie Olson of Inkwell Management, who seems to represent the hall of comic artists who work at Scholastics. Oh, excuse me, half. That's half, not hall. Charlie Olson of Inkwell Management, who seems to represent half of the comics artists who worked at Scholastics. So there's no reason to phrase that as if it was a question. It's just awkwardly worded. What you should do here is Charlie Olson, leave off this of Inkwell Management because we've already introduced him as Inkwell Management. So Charlie Olson, leave off the who, and let's leave off the seams as well. Charlie Olson represents plural. Let's take a shot. This whole sentence, this final sentence rework deserves 2 shots. Oh, 1. 2. So that's Charlie Olson represents half of the comic artists who work at Scholastic. Now I recognize the seams is supposed to make it seem like it's not necessarily true, or perhaps a bit of hyperbole, but just go with it, man. Just own it. Charlie Olson represents half of the comic artists who work at Scholastic. Just own it, man. Just own it. Stanley, and this is a new entry. I get kind of worried when I see new entries showing up at this high of a ranking it says Rich Johnson was sloppily put together his list previously because there's no reason for this many new entries to appear, and because power in comics doesn't shift that dramatically. It's a very, despite it being a creative field, it's very stagnant, static establishment. There's not really that many changes that take place, and it doesn't necessarily take place at a wide scale. Anyway, so yeah, that's Charlie Olson. Now let's do Stanley Lau. The effect that a cover of Stanley Lau can have on a comic book, especially if it concerns a young woman character, should not be underestimated, and has a significant effect on weekly charts. Now, leave off this part and just have it before. The effect that a cover of a cover by Stanley Lau can have on a comic book, especially if it concerns a young woman character, should not be underestimated. Period. Leave this off. This is stupid. If he goes the way of J. Scott Campbell and creates, markets, comma, take a shot, and sells more of his own work than he does already. Let's leave out the than he does already. There's a limit to where he goes. Well, I mean, that's kind of stupidly worded. It's not really awkward. It makes sense, except it doesn't. Because it just means he makes more money. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going anywhere. Like, he's still going to be a significant artist who has noticeable covers and other things. So what it should say is, if he goes the way of J. Scott Campbell and sells more of his own work, then he can expect steady income increases. He can have steady sales. Something about sales. Not necessarily about going places or seeing where he goes. He's not really going anywhere when it comes to selling his own artwork. If he were writing something more frequently or proactively, then he might be going somewhere. He might be hired on as a writer and an artist. But just selling your own art more on your own independent store, he's not really going anywhere with that. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. Make that money, homie. But, like, it's not going to get you an editing job just because you're starting to sell your own work. You're not going anywhere. Number 47, Kelly Sue DeConnick, who's down. I mentioned earlier, Kelly Sue DeConnick is part of a clique from Comics Alliance, something Douglas Ernst and your boy Zach knows all about. I am not familiar with all the shenanigans that was taking place at Comics Alliance Forum. Only that Comics Alliance, the forum, was a fan website. Not customer website, a fan website. These are people who would suck an artist's dick if it meant getting, like, signage or whatever. So these weren't regular customers. These were people who were fans, fanatics. And Kelly Sue DeConnick was part of the group of creators who would occasionally show up on that forum full of fans, and the fans would lose their minds. I don't know the specifics. Like I said, reach out to Douglas Ernst or your boy Zach if you want to know more. Or maybe Captain Cummings. Or Captain... God, I feel so bad. Captain Frugal. Reach out to them if you want to know some more specifics. Anyway, Kelly Sue DeConnick, writer of Aquaman. Wait a minute. Why are these in italics? You mean you could have put these comic titles in italics this whole time, and you just didn't? Yeah, I'm gonna need to finish off this bottle because I was willing to ignore it because I was under the impression that maybe, just maybe, Bleeding Cool doesn't allow the writer to put stuff in italics. But Rich Johnston could have put italics in the titles of books this whole time. So hold on, I just need to finish off this bottle because those are editing mistakes that, you know, let's just say he's had about 40 editorial mistakes. So I'm just going to finish off this bottle. Oh, yeah. Just a second, I'm working on finishing off this bottle. Oh, almost done. Almost done. Oh, God. Oh, oh, man. Oh my God. So the reason why I needed to finish off that bottle is because Rich Johnston has had the capability of putting the title of a comic in italics this whole time. He just wasn't doing it. That, now, when it comes to the titles of a comic book, if you might recall, this is something you should learn in high school, maybe college, but titles of a comic book work should be either, it should be done in somehow to separate itself from regular text. Whether, and the options vary depending on the length of the text. You might put it in quotes, you might bold it, you might italicize it, but you generally need to do something when indicating a work. So when it comes to like, Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote Black Panther. Black Panther should have been either italicized or underlined. Rich Johnston should have been either using italicization or underlines this whole time, but because he's a garbage tier writer, he hasn't been doing that. And that's why I just felt that, because whenever I find some sort of mistake, I would take a shot. But this, because Rich Johnston, we're for what, 47 entries in, and because Rich Johnston has not been either putting stuff in underline, or italicized, or generally in quotation marks, he's been fucking up this entire article, basically. So that's not the kind of situation where you take just one shot, or 2 shots, or even 10 shots. You need to take a lot of shots. So what I did, I don't know really how many shots I had left, but I just finished off my bottle of wine. Just chugged it. Anyway, moving on, because fuck you, Rich Johnston. Moving on, where was I? Oh yeah, that's right. I talked about Kelly Sue DeConnick and being on the Comics Alliance forums. I talked about Doug Ernst, Captain Frugal, Captain Cummings, and your boy Zach, and how they were familiar with her shenanigans and her clique, so to speak. And I didn't even read the entire paragraph. I just kind of stopped there. Okay, so anyway, Pretty Deadly. Okay. A strong voice in the comics industry, fueled with the Captain Marvel movie, based on her take of the character, which is only partially true. She remains a font for advice? A font for advice? Dude, just stop trying to be clever. You replace that with the word source. Now, I can't take a sip of wine because it's done. I'm drinking the entire bottle of wine. And now I need to decide, am I going to open up a second bottle? Or am I just going to just be here sad and not have anything to signify that this is bad writing? So maybe it's because I'm lightly toasted and getting buzzed again, but I do not feel a need to open up a second bottle of wine. But I do need to let you know that if I wanted to be true to the spirit of this exercise, I would go to the fridge and open up a second bottle of wine. That would be the consistent thing to do. But for the sake of my own safety, I don't want to wind up getting so drunk on shots that I wind up choking on my own vomit. Now, I also want you to know that a Rich Johnson article is so badly written that you might wind up choking on your own vomit without even drinking any sip of alcohol. So I just want anybody who's viewing this video to recognize what kind of risks are at stake here. Imagine reading an article this bad and being drunk. I could die. And so I don't want to die. So I will not be drinking any more alcohol tonight. But I will give Rich Johnson and this poorly written article a wag of the finger. I know it's not as dramatic as getting drunk, or at least drunker, but I think it's still an appropriate signifier of my shame and disappointment that this is a person who writes articles. I haven't even finished this Kelly Sue DeConnick paragraph. What a slog this is. God damn. Anyway, she remains a source for advice, support, and comradeship. And her production company with Matt Fraction, Milkbed. This leads us to another fucking run-on sentence because, seriously, just wag of the finger. If you happen to have any liquor or alcohol in you, take a shot. I'm giving, I actually, don't take a shot. I cannot recommend you do something that I am not willing or able to take myself. And I'm genuinely concerned about dying from alcohol poisoning. So I cannot recommend you take further shots. But I will give Rich Johnson a wag of the finger for yet another run-on sentence. So anyway, with Matt Faction, Milkbed continue to develop new comics and adapt and represent them for other media. That sentence makes no sense. I regret reading it. I have died from more brain cells have died reading these articles than from the alcohol. That much I promise you. This paragraph of Kelly Sue DeConnick is so badly written that I'm just going to go ahead and move on. Let's make sure this is recording. Yes, it is recording. We're 18 minutes in, and I've done three paragraphs. Oh boy, what a slog this is. Next is Grant Morrison, OBE. I don't know what OBE stands for. If Rich Johnson were a good writer, which we've established he's not, but if he were a good writer, he would actually let us know what OBE stands for, because that is not something we encounter in everyday parlance. The purpose of an article is to be clear and concise. You can have purple prose and still be clear and concise, but just having OBE, that's not something you see every day, at least not here in America. Or I bet in Britain, which is why I think where Rich Johnson is located. So fuck you, Rich Johnson, for not telling us what OBE stands for. I look it up myself, but again, I am not going to clean up the mistakes created by Rich Johnson. OBE is not something that is encountered in everyday parlance, and you cannot expect the average reader to understand what that means. I don't know what OBE means, and I'm going to say it's Rich Johnson's fault in this circumstance. Moving on. Grant Morrison, OBE, a new entry. How the fuck is Grant Morrison a new entry? He's been in comics fucking forever. Grant Morrison, yeah, I'm not going to go into the specifics of how long he's been in comics, but This new entry indicates that he wasn't on the list last year. Why wasn't he on the list last year? Because a bunch of hacks which never should have been in the list in the first place were put on the list. Because Rich Johnson is a garbage tier writer. And I haven't even started on Grant Morrison's paragraph, so let's get started on that. A highly prized writer, he chooses his work sparingly and with care, and with editors who know how to get the hell out of his way. Magician, musician, comma, and marketeer, semicolon. Each step he makes seems out a wag of the finger, by the way. If you happen to have any alcohol left, go ahead and, no, that's right. I'm no longer recommending people take shots, because I myself am not taking further shots. But if I did have more alcohol, I would be taking a shot right now. Because it may not necessarily even be technically incorrect. I don't care. For the sake of ease of readership, it should be magician, musician, comma, and marketer. Either semicolon or colon. Each step he makes seems out of kilter with every other step. But when you look back, there is just a straight line. And it's a little awkward, but I don't think it's so bad that it's worth commenting on. It's just a little bit awkward. Successfully, and unpredictable. So it's either successfully unpredictable or successful without the Y at the end. We don't need this Y. Successful and unpredictable, or successfully unpredictable. Choose either one. Either one is correct. He is the very definition of the words commercial and artist. Oh boy, another run-on sentence. Now, I don't know he's the very definition of the words commercial artist. I mean, I don't know what Rich Johnson is trying to say, but what I know what he's done is create another run-on sentence. So, a wag of the finger in lieu of taking another shot. So we'll start over. Let's pretend. Let's go into a magical world where Rich Johnson is a better writer. He doesn't have to be a perfect writer, just better. We would have put a period here. And I don't know what this would have meant, but let's just assume he clarified it, or worded it more clearly. And we started a new sentence. There's a period here, okay? With Liam Sharp, S.D. Olive. Wait, what? Even trying to clean up this mess, it doesn't make a fucking bit of sense. Let's read it together to see how ridiculous this is. So we're going to actually start from the beginning here. Successfully and unpredictable. She is the very definition of the words commercial and artist. And with Liam Sharp as Steve Olive, did a lot of good with Green Lantern in 2019 and into 2020. Until the reboot happened, of course. Wow. That sentence is just trashed here. Like, this is the very definition of stream of consciousness, but not good stream of consciousness that you might get from an experienced writer. No, this is trash tier stream of consciousness. Now, for those who don't know, stream of consciousness writing is where you just write things down without even thinking about it. You just write and you write and you write. It's a great way to overcome writer's block. For example, stream of consciousness. Just so that, and I'm just doing this so you can see how it works. Grant Morrison went to the seashore. He never really enjoyed going to the seashore, but he felt a need to go to the seashore because he was feeling an aching need to see the sea, and to look at the boats, and listen to the birds, and enjoy the sand. He didn't know why he was there, perhaps to draw inspiration from the whatever. The point is, you write without even thinking about what comes next. Now, I'm too much of a thinker, so to speak. And I don't mean that to sound arrogant, it's just I think too much about what I want to say next. Even if what I want to say next comes out as awkward, I tend to think about it. With stream of consciousness, you literally just write things down. And you write shit down that doesn't make any sense. If you're a good writer, your experience with writing makes you very good at a stream of consciousness. Because you can do a stream of consciousness with proper punctuation, proper syntax, proper prose, etc. Rich Johnston is coming across as someone who's doing a stream of consciousness, and they are having a fever dream drug overdose. I am not saying that Rich Johnston was on drugs, but if he does come out and say, yeah, I was on drugs when I wrote that article, I'll be like, I understand. I understand. Again, I'm not making an accusation. I'm just saying if he were to say that, I would quickly forgive him and empathize with that choice. Yeah. So, this Grant Morrison write-up is just a trash fire. It makes no sense. Moving on to Jason. By the way, new entry. Anyway, Jason Aaronson. Jason Aaron, who has moved down in the rankings. The writer from Marvel of the Avengers, Aaron has been the connective tissue between Alonso and Cebulski, executive-in-chief reigns. And after War of the Realms, continue to build up Avengers 1 million BC, Mephisto, Ghost Rider, Starbrand, and more. Without focus, I'm just going to say that paragraph seemed tolerable. Let's move on. David Stewart II, who has moved up in the rankings. Owner and founder of St. Louis publisher Lion Forge, is on the way up. A comics publisher recently undergoing its own restructuring. He sells himself as a photographer, done good, but is also the son of multi-billionaire David Stewart, chairman of Worldwide Technology Inc., with vast potential resources and funding opportunities to draw upon. Why is David Stewart II moving up in the rankings? Lion's Forge is such a trash fire of a publisher that it got sold to Oni Press. Unless David Stewart still has some sort of stake in Oni Press after that buyout, he should be out of comics altogether. And I'm not saying that because I want him out of comics. I'm not saying that because I have any sort of malice or disdain for him. I don't know anything about him, other than he's the son of a rich dad, and doesn't appear to have established anything on his own based on merit, like any rich person can do, found a comics publishing company. We see that with a lot of sociopaths. Preston Poulter has his own comics line. He is not particularly talented, but if you throw enough money at it, you might eventually get some returns. Look, if you've got the money, then you've got the money. But somebody with talent can rise up much more quickly than somebody who has nothing but money to throw around. And that sounds like the case with the David Stewart II. He has no talent and just throwing money out there. It's like he made $100,000, but he spent $400,000. Well, I mean, if you want to say, wow, he's so talented, he made $100,000. Well, okay. Eye roll, says the successful businessman. Now, your boy Zach constantly said that David Stewart II is just a person who throws his money around based on his dad's money. And I never really cared one way or the other, but this write-up from Rich Johnston makes me 100% certain that David Stewart II is a person without talent and just has his dad's money to lean upon. Again, sometimes you can just throw money at a situation until you become successful, and I don't begrudge that success. If you've got the money, then you've got the money. But David Stewart comes across as a person who's not getting by on merit or talent. Moving on, James Tinian the Fourth. What a and by the way, it makes no sense for him to be moving up. If this merger with between Oni Press and Lion Forge is like most mergers, like I said, David Stewart II should have been bought out. He may have actually made his money back. I don't know. I doubt it personally, but maybe he did. But then that's the end of his influence in comics. Like, think about it like this. Rich Johnston has nothing to say about his editorial or networking skills. The only thing Rich Johnston can say about David Stewart II is that his daddy has money. He's not even talented enough to network for the sake of networking. Moving on, James Tinian IV is someone with a name that sounds like he's a British nobility. Moving on, owner and founder. No, wait, that's David Stewart still. 2019 was the year Tinian broke through. The combination of Something's Killing the Children, by the way, once again in italics, and The Batman writing role after Tom King. Wait a minute, as of the time of this writing of this article, at best there would have been 3 articles? Not too many articles. Certainly not enough not enough Batman stories after Tom King to have made any sort of significant impact. Why is he getting credit for this? Anyway, well-respected, successful, supporting player to a star in his own right. Throw in The Woods, pilot being developed at Sci-Fi/UCP, and Mimetic, with The Boys producers Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, and he's having a heck of a year. Rich Johnston, being the garbage tier writer that he is, doesn't tell us exactly what his connection is to The Woods. Did he create The Woods? Did he co-create The Woods? Did someone else create The Woods and he was just the writer for The Woods? Doesn't say. Same with Medic and The Boys. I've never actually... Anyway, yeah, moving on. Ross Ritchie, who has moved... Wait. Down. The CEO of Boom Studios managed to build 2019 to end up at 4th place in the direct market share, right next to Image. Their snagging of the Wheatonverse licenses, combined with a streak of original series, have resulted in higher sales and steadily increasing market share. Ritchie would have likely landed even higher on the list had Disney not squashed his dreams of the Mouse Guard franchise 2 weeks before principal photography would have started on the $170 million production, and after $20 million in prep. Now, I do want to mention that Rich Johnston is accidentally giving us some insight into the industry. The Mouse Guard, the comic, is a competitor to Marvel. Quote, it's Marvel/Disney. Had Disney proceeded to produce a Mouse Guard film, Ross Ritchie have been able to benefit indirectly from that as the CEO of Boom Studios. This is why some people are saying Disney is too powerful and possibly, maybe, shouldn't be allowed to have both Marvel and Fox. Because Marvel didn't fund Mouse Guard, not due to they just didn't like the story necessarily, but because it would have boosted a competitor via Mouse Guard Comics. Because, let's face it, Americans love furry stories. You see Zootopia, which had an okay story and was okay produced. It wasn't actually well produced and didn't have a good story. But Americans love furries. Mouse Guard would have had a bunch of naked mice running around. So just think about that. I might be going off on a little bit of a tangent, but what matters here is that Mouse Guard was shelved by Disney, most likely because they would have been a competitor to in the comics world. Not necessarily because the Mouse Guard didn't look promising. Let's move on to spot number 41. Ben Abernathy, a new entry at rank number 41. Again, I've been concerned about these new entries getting such a high ranking. It makes me wonder where the hell was Bleeding Cool before, and who are the people who fell off the ratings list. Moving on. New Batman editor, as Tom King gets replaced by James Tynion, and with more potentially publicity baiting changes to come. 20 could be the Batman's most public clear since the Tim Burton movie. This is a horrible entry for Ben Abernathy. This does not justify him leapfrogging 69 spots into rank number 41. He's just a new Batman editor. I'm assuming staff editor and not necessarily lead editor. Being the editor to Batman does not grant him 41 rank, not based on this write-up. Potential publicity baiting changes to come. Well, he hasn't baited any actual publicity. And second of all, how long has he been the editor of Batman? Was he editor when that whole Batman wedding fiasco took place? Because if he was editor when that shitstorm took place, he should not be at rank 41 at all. That greatly hurt Batman. I'm not quite sure if it's, again, if this is his line of work. Batman has like 3 or 4 possible lines of continuity. I know there's Detective Comics, I know there's Batman, there's something connected to the Outsiders, so there's a couple of potential Batman lines. But if he was the editor during the Batman wedding fiasco, he should not be at rank 41 most powerful, because he would have lost a shitstorm of influence. Now, next up is Chris Rial. Whoo boy. Rial returned to IDW at the end of last year and has managed to create some new excitement at the publisher, including bringing Stan Sakai's Usagi Yojimbo, relaunching G.I. Joe and Transformers, creating speculator heat for their TMNT series, getting some original heat with Kanto, and getting Joe Hill to do some new projects, even as he launches Hill House at DC. I think we saw Joe Hill earlier because he has like his special, I don't know if he has his special imprint or some sort of mini deal with DC where he gets his books published in DC. That's Joe Hill. But Chris Rial does deserve to have moved up the rank. I don't know if he deserves to be moved up to rank 40. And that's because Chris Rial was then editor-in-chief at IDW. He ran IDW into the ground, largely. He was fired. And then he was brought back as, the president, I think? It doesn't say here in the Rich Johnston article, because Rich Johnston is a terrible writer. But, I don't know what heat was created for Kanto that's off my radar. But even though Rich Johnson is horrible, I'm going to take his word for it. But I'm going to say that there has absolutely not been any heat created for that TMNT series. Kevin Eastman has been independently writing that book with some occasional co-writers the whole time. Chris Rial has definitely not brought anything to the table when it comes to the TMNT series. Rich Johnson is sniffing that Chris Rial asshole when he says that Chris Rial has brought heat to TMNT. And by the way, bringing and encouraging speculators, I don't know how that's even a thing worth acknowledging. What does that have to do with power and influence? I mean, I guess you might be able to say that speculators bring money into the market, but not really. I mean, it's kind of a yes and a no. They bring money, but not power and influence. And fuck you, Rich Johnson. Seriously, fuck you. Hold on, it seems like my OC remix has frozen. Yeah, it's frozen. Video pause, continue watching. This is remix number 151, a Street Fighter 2 remix for Blanca. That's OC remix number 151. If you like this tropical beat, once again, that's 151. 151. Oh yeah, I like this. I kind of want to get up and dance, see how that affects my drunkenness. But anyway, Marie Javins, dubbed by people I've spoken to as editor of choice at DC. She's back to putting comic book Band-Aid together, conversion style, to keep the whole of DC publishing on track. What a meaningless and pointless entry that tells us nothing. Which particular books is she editing? Which line of books is she editing? Can you give us an example of what kind of editing job she's done? And by the way, for those who don't know, editors in comics are not necessarily editors. They're not correcting stories. Generally, they're not making sure continuity is consistent. They might do that, but that's not their primary job. Some people might say that the editors at Marvel and DC, at least, are actually producers. What that means is that they pitch ideas, and then writers just write based on that pitch or that idea. So the editors at Marvel DC, at least, they're not necessarily art editors. Granted, they can do some editing, but the continuity errors, the inconsistent characterization, the typos, and the bad art suggest that these editors at DC and especially at Marvel are not necessarily doing their jobs. So, this weak and tepid entry for Marie Javins isn't doing her any favors. I'm not sure why she's really on the list at all. She's not lead editor, she's not editor-in-chief, she's not supervising editor, it just says editor. I don't know if she's an assistant editor. I'm leaning towards believing that she's a staff editor, which is more powerful than an associate editor. Moving on to Jamie Rich. Now that Tom King is off Batman, so is Jamie Rich. Was he the artist? Was he the co-writer? So he is Superman or editor instead. Really? So you mean he's looking over Brian Michael Bendis' trash tier stories and saying, yeah, I approve of all of this trash. It's all good. Yeah, why is his power and influence up? If he's the Superman editor, whoever is the editor, all the editors at Superman and the Superman line, they're doing a fucking terrible job by refusing to rein in Rich Johnston. How a wag of the finger. Again, I do a wag of the finger because I've run out of alcohol. Now, like I've mentioned before, I could get more alcohol, but I have a genuine concern about dying by choking on my own lungs. And that's not necessarily because the writing of these articles is so bad. But if you are drinking along, this would be a drinking situation. I'm going to give a wag of the finger to show my contempt and shame. Being EIC at Oni Press? Wait. Is he really the editor-in-chief at Oni Press? That might explain why his power and influence would increase. If he's allowed to be the editor at DC and Oni Press. Running DC Vertigo. I thought Andy Corey was running DC Vertigo. And writing his own comic books over the years have stood him in good stead, even when it's now all about dealing with Brian Bendis and all that 5G will bring. That's run uncensored to make no sense, as usual. Don't be afraid to separate your thoughts, Rich Johnson. A period will go a long way. Just throw in a couple of periods. So let's see, how would I rewrite this? Writing his own commentary. So, he was the EIC at Oni Press. He was running DC Vertigo. And he has been writing his own comic books over the years. Period. Now he has the experience to deal with Brian Michael Bendis and all that 5G will bring. I think I've just extemporaneously corrected this sentence while drunk off my ass. So yay me. Now Jordan White, oh god damn it. Marvel's X-Men group editor, and the only one apart from Jonathan Hickman. I don't want to disrespect his name. Jonathan Hickman, who has a handle on what the hell is going on. Has seen the X fortunes turn around to dominate the charts once more. An awful lot of that is down to someone else. He's been the one keeping the trains mostly running on time by doing an awful lot of prep work. And I'm going to call bullshit on all of that. The X-Men series, the House of X, the Powers of X, and all those spin-offs, I'm not giving Jordan White any credit for it. Because the House of X, Powers of X, have had to do retcons on the previous series. Shit that Jordan White was asleep at the wheel for. So, I'm going to press X to doubt. Jordan D. White actually needs to have his power and influence marked way down, not up. Because it's very clear that Jonathan Hickman is actually running the show. Now, I understand Jonathan Hickman may not be able to necessarily say that, but I don't believe for a second that Jordan fucking White is doing a goddamn thing with X-Men. I think he's taking orders from Jonathan Hickman. And if there was a power struggle between Hickman and White, White would win because he is an editor. But I think what's happening is Jordan White is just taking a back seat and letting Hickman do what Hickman needs to do. Because there's just, after the trash that has been coming out of X-Men for at least a year, but for people who have been following, it's probably been longer than that. All with Jordan White at the helm, I don't believe that he's been navigating or keeping anything on the rails. The only thing he's been keeping is his appointments to have ukulele lessons. That's it. Fuck this entry. Fuck you, Rich Johnson. Wag of the finger. Everybody take a shot. Just god damn it. Just god fucking damn it. And that entry with Jordan White. Fuck Jordan White. There's no way he should be moved up. This is an entry. If you are aware of how X-Men has been going, he should be moved far down the list. Up next, Nicola Barucci, who has moved up. Dynamite Entertainment of New Jersey is the largest comic book publishing company owned by one man, Nicky. He also owns Dynamite Forces and is rumored to have fingers in comics-focused websites as well. Between The Boys on Amazon, leading to massive backlist sales. I don't know what backlist sales are. Now, let's assume that this is an industry insider thing. I'm going to actually look that up in real time right now. Backlist sales. Because that is surely a thing I've never heard of. Backlist sales. Hold on. Backlist. Sales. Hold on. I want you guys to see this. Let's get you involved. Backlist sales? Backlist sales. Promos versus backlist novel. Wikipedia. A backlist is a list of older comic books available from a publisher as opposed to titles newly published. Okay, so it was more kind of an insider term that I just wasn't familiar with. Building a strong backlist has distributed the best that distributes a profitable publishing house. As the most expensive aspects of the publishing process have already been paid for, and the only remaining expenses are for reproduction costs and author royalty. The backlist is the financial backbone of the comic book industry, accounting for 25 to 30% of the average publisher's sales. Current titles, those as frontlist, are often a gamble. They can become bestsellers, but they are much more likely to disappear into a flood of return from bookstores. By contrast, backlist books usually have predictable sales and revenues. Okay, that gives me a good idea of what he means by backlist. So, between The Boys on Amazon leading to massive backlist sales and Vampirella #1 setting a new record for the franchise, he's been able to rebuild his war chest. Okay, excellent. I had to do a little bit of research, but I took that on me. Not everything is an insider term. This was an insider term I was not familiar with, so I don't hold that against Rich Johnson. We have to be fair. So what that means is that the backstock of The Boys, because it got turned into an Amazon series, led to a massive upswing in sales and backorder comic books that Nicola Barucci was able to sell. This makes sense. Ideally, I think he should he's only number 36. I guess that's pretty powerful. Anyway, no one in the business knows how to reposition classic licenses and keep them viable over a long stretch of time than Nick. Brian Pulido better be on this list. Somehow I think he's not. Isaac Perlmutter, who is down. Chair of Marvel, has been a shockingly bad year for him in terms of influence, with his creative input, which he wielded with a broad brush, taken away completely. He is still responsible for financial issues, which can and down include? No, I'm not even sure what you're... This is one of those sentences or phrases that are so bad that I can't even fathom what he might have been trying to say. So I'm going to skip that out completely. He is still responsible for financial issues, skip all that, including hiring and firing, budgets, advertising, promotions, comma, wag of the finger, and bring the money in? what? It's vague, but I'll allow it. But the days of making a Spider-Gwen comic happen to screw over Sony. How does having Spider-Gwen screw over Sony? I'll just assume that's some inside baseball, because I don't know how that works. Or canceling Fantastic Four to screw Fox are gone. This I understand. The thing is, the Fantastic Four movie or film franchise belongs to Fox. So, when it comes to a Fantastic Four comic, Isaac Perlmutter would have absolutely no incentive to greenlight a Fantastic Four comic because that would boost interest in the movie. And Fox and Disney at the time were hardcore competitors. And so they had absolutely no interest and no incentive and no reason to try and boost sales, even marginally, through the comics. So that makes sense. I don't know how the Spider-Gwen factors into that at all. What I know from Spider-Gwen is that it's such a lazy concept that she's been called Spider-Gwen and not given an actual name for almost 2 years, because the editors at Marvel are fucking terrible. Eventually deciding that her name would be Ghost Spider, because Spider-Gwen is not an actual fucking identity. And the Marvel editors are, goddamn, are they terrible. I'll say it, well, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The editors at Marvel, this current crop, could be literally replaced with 13-year-old 8th graders who actually like comics, and you would get better stories, better editing, better steering of the ship, whatever you want to call it. Things would improve with a bunch of 13-year-olds who actually enjoy comics than these full-grown adults. And that includes Jordan White, who hired work girlfriends to be his editors. Mark Millar down. The man who sold Miller World to Netflix, he continues to have an extraordinary ability to attract A-list artists to his projects, even if they are no longer creator-owned. His ability to launch a book has been lessened, however, and he had to sneak American Jesus Pass by disguising what it was. I don't know what that means. What was it disguised as, Rich Johnston? You clearly know, but thanks for being a horrible writer and not telling us, and I'm not going to look it up, because fuck you. Still, he had the ability to ask for it and get it. The Netflix shows and films will help when they finally hit. Oh, finally hit? Finally hit? You're assuming that a Netflix show is guaranteed to hit. That's not necessarily true. Moving on to Kieran Glenn, who has moved up the rankings. Kieran is arguably one of 2019's biggest original hitmakers. In addition to winding down The Wicked and The Divine, he gave us Die and Once in Future, which were two of the few standout hits of the year. He doesn't come with the bat often, but when he does, he seems to hit it out of the park. Okay, I don't have any problem with that there. Maybe a professional editor might, but I don't. Sean Murphy, who has moved up the rankings. Writer-artist on the smash hit comic book series Batman White Knight series, which outperformed all expectations last year, and has seen him given the DC Publishing keys to sequels and spin-offs at his leisure. Basically, right now, he gets to do what he wants, as long as it still doesn't include showing off Harley Quinn's nipples. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but if someone is so powerful that they can essentially do whatever the hell they want and are being given free reign with I don't know if the Batman White Knight universe is considered an imprint, but if he's pretty much been given free reign to do whatever the hell he wants as a writer at DC, 32 is pretty powerful, but I would imagine that he should be even more powerful. I don't know. That's just me. Sana Amanat down. Marvel Vice President of Content and Creator Development Director, co-creator and editor of Miss Marvel. She's a very strong voice internally, and no at Marvel, and a face for a publisher for the rest of the world. That's an ugly face. That might sound jacked up, but Sana Amanat is not the face I would put to the world. Her 10 years at the publisher, combined with her media profile? What media profile? Her only other experience in the media is being a failed publisher at some other rinky-dink startup. Then she all of a sudden became a high-ranking vice president of content and character development, which has seen over the past 10 years the worst character development in Marvel history. I can't speak to how she's reaching out to new audiences either, especially since Marvel has done such a poor job at reaching out to new audiences that they've actually resorted to licensing out their children's books to IDW, which is incredibly embarrassing. Granted, she's shown that her power has been ranked down, but she's still a vice president, so I guess it makes sense that even if her power has gone down, it makes sense that it would not have gone down a lot. And I skipped over Nick Landau and Vivian Chung, who have moved up in the rankings. Let's see the justification for this. The owners of Titan Comics, which I assume have a lot of licenses. Nick and Viv add to this portfolio by owning the Titan magazine, Titan Books, the Forbidden Planet chain of comic book stores, and other businesses you have no business knowing about. That's very ominous, Rich Johnston. That's very ominous. You don't want to put this in a news article. Actually, this isn't news, but you don't put this in an article. What the hell? Like, this isn't accidentally revealing backdoor industries. This was a very sour taste in my mouth. This seems kind of like, what the hell are you doing? Kind of other businesses you have no business knowing about. I don't know if he's trying to be cheeky. He's done a horrible job here. He should let's rewrite this sentence to something that's not going to make it look like Landau and Chung are part of some sort of Black Ops cult, shall we? The owners of Titan Comics and Titan Magazine, along with Titan Magazine, Titan Books, and the Forbidden Planet chain of comic book stores. Period. So the owners of Titan Comics, and the owner of Titan Comics, Titan Magazine, Titan Books, and the Forbidden Planet chain of comic book stores. Period. Yes. Leave out this sinister shit right here, Rich Johnston. Like, this makes it seem like either Nick Landau and Vivian Chung are part of some sort of Black Ops, Black Site terrorist group, or that you are just chomping at the bit to blackmail. Which, I don't know. Rich Johnston could have information of blackmail. I don't know. He is certainly the type of person to do it. Moving on, they have a reputation of micromanagement, not manager, at Titan Comics, and are both commissioners and gatekeepers of every comic book that goes through the public. Now we get into run-on sentence territory, with a range of licenses, creator-owned and translated works. Let's leave out this, or leave it in, but just, for God's sake, just don't make it a run-on sentence. Rivers of London, Doctor Who to Robotech to Tank Girl. as working with both Marvel and DC. You know, it's interesting that it seems like Rich Johnston had time to look up these four intellectual properties that they own, but couldn't be bothered to name not one, not even two, but not one comic that Tamara Bonvillain is working on. You remember that from my 75 through 100 issues? He like had Tamara Bonvillain there, and he couldn't name a single work that she was working on. Hilarious. So Sana Amanat, Tom King down, definitely. Tom King was the creator who could get his own group editor fired off the Batman books. This last year saw he limits of his power and influence as Batman sales softened, and Heroes in Crisis was critically panned. Bob Harras took this opportunity to sack him off Batman. What a terrible sentence. This last year saw the limits of his power and influence, as Batman sales softened and Heroes in Crisis was critically panned. Period. Bob Harras took this opportunity to sack him off Batman. There you go. Those are two sentences, the one with Bob Harras and the one about waning influence. But wasn't Heroes in Crisis, weren't the critics sucking Tom King's dick? Hold on. Heroes in Crisis, bleeding cool. Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. What was this written? Oh, and by Rich Johnson. Let's see if he contradicts himself. Hero, as a hero streams across the sky. A curates comic. They do appear to be made for is the finished comic. He doesn't give a score, but to his credit, and sadly I don't like having to give Rich Johnston credit, Rich Johnston does make it clear that he was somewhat disappointed in Heroes in Crisis. But Heroes in Crisis... Now, because I could have sworn Heroes in... God damn it. I'm too drunk for this. Heroes in Crisis score. Because I'm just saying, I could have sworn that the shill media was sucking the writer's dick, but apparently no. Yeah, I guess it was critically panned. Alright. Okay, moving on. Nevertheless, the ability of his 12-issue series as a perennial seller and being picked to adapt his Mr. Miracle series into the New Gods movie demonstrates DC aware of and respects his ability and fan base. Who is his fan base? It sounds like he's right. He took Vision and then the Elmer Fudd Batman, not Elmer Fudd, but Looney Tunes Batman, and that's it. Those were the only series that were great. Mr. Miracle was a constant, repeating 9-panel pages. Mr. Miracle wound up fucking killing himself to run away from his privileged upbringing because he was. Well, no, let me walk that way back. He suffered harshly, but he was settling into a comfortable, upper middle class lifestyle. And then Mr. Miracle killed himself. and the entire 12 comics, or however many comics it was about him killing himself, and the hallucinations as he slowly came to grips with death. So, there was nothing heroic about that. Tom King doesn't know how to write a hero to save his life. And getting picked to write Mr. Miracle for this New Gods movie by Ava DuVernay, that's going to be a trash fire. Because Ava DuVernay doesn't know how to write heroes, and Tom King doesn't know how to write heroes. I will certainly be comfortable with being proven wrong, but you got two people who don't know how to write heroes. Anyway, moving on to Jeff Johns, who is down. He may have dropped from CEO of DC, but he is still co-writing the DC movies and TV shows. DC Doomsday Clock was DC's consistent bestseller, even as it slipped out of continuity, and there's still the Three Jokers and Johns announced but undetailed imprint, The Killing Zone, set to match Brian Bendis' Wonder Comics line. We'll see. To be honest, I think Jeff Johns should have slipped much further than from 28. I don't know what he's doing at DC right now, but his star has been falling ever since that Green Lantern movie. And I hope to God his Killing Zone is not anything like Brian Bendis' Wonder Comics. Because Brian Bendis' Wonder Comics is a fucking trash fire. Now, Todd McFarlane, who is a new entry all the way up at number 27. Back with a bang. Don't get me wrong. Todd McFarlane is an influential person in comics. He's been around forever. I'm just saying, from somebody to go from not on the list at all to number 27, this is the type of irrational leap. He should have been on the list previous year and then moved up into this position. A wag of the finger, take a shot. Take 2 shots. Take 3. Anyway, Todd McFarlane, back with a bang. Co-founder of Image Comics. It was this year that Spawn 300 took its place back in the top titles in the industry, and Todd picked up the pencil again. 2? Remove the 2, Rich Johnston. And Todd picked up the pencil again. After that, the film he is still flying ahead with, and its meticulous attention to detail. And he's earned his spot on this chart, possibly more than anyone. Possibly more than anyone? Even Tamara Bonvillain? Fuck you, Rich Johnston. So, 2 more, and then I'm going to take another quick break. Alex Carr, another new entry, except I don't know who the hell this guy is. DCU Group, is he a new group editor? Where the hell did this guy come from? DCU Group editor. After moving from a very successful run on the young adult line to take through the DC Superheroes Global, all eyes are on Alex as an inspirational leader and potential future publisher of DC. Again, another DC editor with a very weak justification here. There is nothing indicating why he needs to be ranked 26th on this list when he's a group editor. And don't get me wrong, group editors are powerful, but he doesn't even say which group he is in charge of. So fuck you. Holy shit. Al Ewing, another new entry at number 25. I'm getting a sore throat because Rich Johnson is a horrible writer. The writer who would be king and encyclopedic knowledge of comics. And that's what she doesn't know he will devour. He took a comic with very little anticipation. Comma, or semicolon, the Immortal Hulk, comma, or, well, I'm not quite sure where the comma should be, but, and with Joe, God, you know what? Just make this 2 sentences. He took a comic with very little He took the Immortal Hulk. He got his hands on the Immortal Hulk, period. There you go. With help from Joe Bennett, managed to outsell Batman. Or you might even want to say the Batman if you want to be impressed. Although I think for technicalities it should be just Batman. His devoted fans justified his remove the comma. You know, it's interesting how you're putting these commas here. How about you move this comma and take this comma and use the Oxford's comma technique, put it at the end of some of those lists from earlier. You fucking asshole. Anyway, Al Ewing. With that, the Marvel 1000 book see him setting up Empire and Mass Raider. Big time and incoming as well. Wow, what a fucking garbage tier sentence. I can't even. As in, I quite literally am too drunk to even be able to correct that sentence. So I'm just going to stop here. I'm going to start uploading this record and getting ready for the finale. I'm going to take some pain meds for my developing sore throat. Thank you, and see you soon. Bye-bye.